This video concerns anyone that's ever made a dollar, anyone that's ever spent a dollar. Fuck, if you've ever been given a fucking dollar. This first clip outlines how paper money came into existence.
Is that a time machine, Biscuit?
There's not much time. You ignorant.
Well, that's okay. Hey, I'm not ignorant.
Do you even know what money is?
Long ago, people bartered. They traded things they had for things they wanted. I'll trade you my raspberries for that there pot pie.
I don't want your berries.
Come on. Sweet berries.
They're not sweet berries. They're old, and I don't like berries.
Give me that pot pie!
No.
As you can see, this bartering situation created some problems. Then one day, a goldsmith walked up and said,
Everybody thinks gold is valuable, so why doesn't everybody trade gold for things they need?
The price was set for gold, and now it was very easy to conduct commerce because people could trade gold for all the things they needed.
Carmen! Wow, look at all my gold! Hey, stop them! That's my gold! Thieves! Say there, Pile, I've got a vault and some guards. I can keep your gold safe for you. For a small fee. Small fee. Yeah, sure, that'd be awesome.
You see, Pyle, this is how the first bank made money.
There you go, Pile. I owe you 100 gold coins.
Okay, great!
Come back anytime and redeem your gold when you want it. It'll be right here in my vault.
Now you're holding the very first paper money, Pyle. Wow, this is great. It all makes sense. Oh, that's right. It was good. And everybody started using IOUs because everybody knew the IOU was as good as gold. Let's begin back.
Hey, Hartman! I need my car, man!
Oh, was that my gold chain?
Yeah, he'll be fine.
Oh, this next clip, it's shows how we got our fucking current banking system.
The gap between the very richest and the rest of us is getting bigger. Why? Money is sucked up from all of us into the pockets of a very small group of people.
How does this happen? One reason is the way that money is created by banks when they make loans. Now, most people assume that when banks make loans, they're lending out someone else's savings.
But they're not.
But he gave me lots of money. Where did my money come from?
When somebody takes out a loan, banks create new money electronically by typing numbers into their account.
These are nothing but numbers that the banks type into their computers.
Sound far-fetched? Surely that can't be true, but it is.
Private banks create money out of nothing and lend it at interest. Now, that sounds absurd. Doubt that could possibly be what's really going on, but it is.
But he charged me a lot of interest.
But how is it that we've ended up with a system in which banks have the power to create money?
To demonstrate how this miracle of modern banking came about, consider this simple story. The goldsmith had another business. He lent out his gold, charging interest. When his convenient claim check money came into acceptance, borrowers began asking for their loans in the form of these claim checks instead of the actual metal, because the claim checks the goldsmith had written as receipts for the gold were being traded in the marketplace as if they were the gold itself.
Good as gold.
Years went by, and the goldsmith made an astute observation. Depositors rarely came in to remove their actual physical gold. That's when he got an even bolder idea. Since no one but himself knew what was actually in his vaults, he could lend out claim checks on gold that wasn't even there.
See, he prints more IOUs without any more gold, loans them out for interest, makes a pretty penny, and nobody is the wiser. Unless everybody wanted their gold back at the same time.
And the banker became enormously wealthy on the interest paid on gold that did not exist.
And the magnitude of the banker's loans and his ostentatious wealth trigger suspicions. Rumors spread. Suddenly,
everybody wanted their gold back at the same time.
Hey! I want my gold back now! Thief!
Gotta love the bank run. See, they all found out he was stealing and made a run on the bank and demanded their gold, but as you can see,
the game was up.
The banker did not have enough gold and silver to redeem all the paper he had put into their hands, is what every banker dreads. It would have been straightforward to outlaw the practice of creating money from nothing.
But the large volumes of credit the bankers were offering had become essential to the success of European commercial expansion, so instead the practice was legalized and regulated.
Bankers agreed to abide by limits on the amount of fictional loan money that could be lent out. Quite often the ratio was 9 fictional dollars to 1 actual dollar in gold.
An evil invention was born. Man discovered how to turn worthless paper into gold.
The
This was invented, the ultimate machine to steal real money and enslave all the nations on Earth.
Oh, so that shit's fucking crazy, right? Like only 10% of fucking money in circulation actually fucking exists. But bullshit as that sounds, craziest part about it, that ain't even the craziest fucking part. That ain't even is how this so-called 10% of real fucking money comes into existence. Like
money creation, described by many as the biggest scam in the history of mankind. Many people don't realize that any dollar spent by the government, one way or another, will be taken from the taxpayers' pockets.
Step 1. The government creates glorified IOUs. Bond is the root word of bondage.
Whenever a government issues a bond, it is a promise to make us pay tax in the future.
The government issues bonds and then sells them to the central bank, who buys them with newly created money. There are no savings in the Fed's account.
Wait a second, Harmon. I just thought of something. Where does the Federal Reserve get their money?
To pay for the bonds, the Federal Reserve opens up its big old checkbook to pay for the bonds and writes bad, bogus, counterfeit checks that should bounce. Bogus that should bounce.
Because they're drawn on an account that always has a zero balance, there isn't one penny in there. When you or I write a check, there must be sufficient funds in our account to cover that check. But when the Federal Reserve writes a check, it is creating money. When the Federal Reserve writes a check, there is no bank deposit on which that check is drawn.
What we now call money is created by the fact that the two institutions exchanged paper or digital records.
So what's really happening is the Federal Reserve and the Treasury are just swapping IOUs.
And abracadabra, presto, currency magically springs into existence.
Earlier in our history, our paper currency was a representation for real money of intrinsic value, the gold and silver that was held on deposit at the Treasury. You could walk into any bank and redeem it for real money. But now, this base currency that's piling up back here is really nothing but a receipt on an IOU.
It is the law that this government currency be money. Indeed, without that legal enforcement, that dollar bill or that computer digit would be pretty much meaningless.
So our entire currency supply is nothing but a couple of bucks whipped up in this hocus-pocus scam
where the Treasury and the Federal Reserve swap glorified IOUs and a bunch of numbers that the banks just type into their computers. That's it. That's our entire currency supply. Some of them printed, most of them typed.
And there is nothing else.
But
if you thought that was crazy,
true wealth is your time. But we trade away moments of our lives, hour by hour, day by day, year by year, for numbers that somebody printed on pieces of paper or just typed into a computer. Now those numbers represent our blood, sweat, tears, labor, ideas, and talent. We are what gives the currency its value.
But here comes the really cool joke.
We work hard so that we can save some of that currency, so that we can pay the tax collector,
This is where the system begins to rob you and I on a massive scale. Much of our taxes are not used for schools, roads, and public services, but to pay interest on bonds that the Federal Reserve bought with a check drawn on an account that has nothing in it. The Federal Reserve is committing fraud. It's all based on a huge paradox. There was interest due on that bond.
And there was interest due on every one of those loans that the banks made. That means
debt equals money.
There is interest due on every dollar in existence.
In order to pay for an existing bond, the government usually just issues some new bonds.
Imagine if you borrowed some money and spent it all at once.
Now suppose that you took another loan to pay off the previous debt. Although the face value of the loan is never repaid, the periodic interest is.
Wait. I still don't understand.
Let me ask you something. If you borrow the very first dollar into existence, and that's the only dollar that exists on the planet, but you promise to pay it back plus another dollar's worth of interest,
where do you get the second dollar to pay the interest?
Only dollar that exists.
The answer is that you have to borrow that one into existence and promise to pay it back with interest as well. So now there are $2 in existence, but you owe $4. And so on and so on. There is always more debt in the system than there is currency in existence to pay the debt.
Therefore, the whole system is impossible.
This is a fraud. It is a pyramid scheme. It is a Ponzi scheme. It's a scam. This is a fraud, and it's a lie. Our entire monetary system is nothing but a pyramid scheme, nothing but a form of legalized theft. This is a fraud,
with a check drawn on an account that has nothing in it.
Here's the biggest con job of them all.
No one is allowed inside the Fed. Not you, not me, no American.
Not the Justice Department, not the CIA, DIA, FBI.
Not even G-O-D. How come the government isn't allowed inside its own building? The Fed is a private bank owned by private stockholders. Do not let the name Federal fool you. A private bank? A private...
The Federal Reserve is not federal. It has stockholders, the owners of that corporation.
Therefore, the Federal Reserve is a private corporation.
Private corporation.
You can't actually trace who owns the stock in the Federal Reserve. That's a very closely guarded secret. You can't actually trace who owns the stock in the Federal Reserve. That's a guarded secret.
Don't be alarmed if you don't quite comprehend the deception of this system at first glance. Very few people do. It is purposely complex. It is purposely complex.
The whole system is impossible. This is a fraud. It is a pyramid scheme, it is a Ponzi scheme, it's a scam, and it's a lie.